The NBA Finals are set. We got the Lakers and the Heat facing off in an intense seven-game series. Josh Allen's got the Bills on his back. Nick Foles is the GOAT. And the Pack is back? You don't want to miss this episode. Hitting the Field starts right now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome to this episode of Hitting the Field. I am happy to be joined by two very special guests today. First off, I got the host of Just Winning, Jon Whitley. Jon, how are you doing today?
Jaret, I could not be more fired up to be joining you guys today. We've got SEC football back in the NBA Finals with a Sunshine State team in the finals, so it's awesome time to be in Florida right now.
You mentioned the Sunshine team in the finals, and we have Ross Bernstein, our Heat. Everything here. Ross, how you feeling?
Right. Jared, how do you think I'm feeling on a day like this? I feel like Tony the Tiger. Great. That was horrible. Never, we could cut that. But whatever. I feel great. We're in the finals, 5th seed. We weren't supposed to be here. I love this team. Talked to my cousin a lot about this team. It might be my personal favorite Heat team because we are just a bunch of dogs. We don't really have a superstar. And listen, we're going to the NBA Finals. It's time to see LeBron. I think you know what I'm ready for.
You mentioned it last night. The Heat took down the Celtics 125-113 in Game 6 to win the Eastern Conference and set up their date with LeBron James in the finals. Jon, I'm going to start with you. What are you looking forward to most in the NBA Finals?
Well, what I'm looking forward to most is the same thing it is every time the Lakers play. It's just the opportunity to watch LeBron James. You know, he's an all-time great player of any sport. So when you get a chance to watch an all-time great, you got to enjoy it because these guys aren't around forever.
That is true. They're not around forever. Ross, what's one thing that you're looking forward to the most?
I mean, besides the obvious, seeing my team in the finals, same like Jon. LeBron is one of the greatest players of all time. He has a 3-6 record in the finals. This is a big deal for him. The pressure is on the Lakers. They are the better team on paper in the series. They have been one of the best teams in the league all year. LeBron needs to pull this through, and Anthony Davis needs to get that chip to solidify himself as one of the better players that we've ever seen.
Now, a big storyline that's been, the headline of the NBA season was Kobe Bryant's death and how that's going to impact the Lakers this season. Do we think that Kobe's death has put extra meaning into the season for LeBron, Anthony Davis, and the rest of the Lakers, and that's the reason they're here, or they're here because they deserve to be here, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it's like serves that extra motivation. Jon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it is an extra motivation. They certainly want to honor Kobe. LeBron was peers with Kobe. And, when you think the Lakers, you think of Kobe Bryant. So I think it is a factor. But you know what? I think it's a factor on the Heat side, too. Like, these are all guys who looked up to Kobe. Kobe was a huge inspiration and mentor to really all the great young players in the NBA right now. So it's a factor, but you know what? I think we'd see the Lakers here either way. LeBron and Anthony Davis have just been absolutely unstoppable in the playoffs.
That's a good point. Ross, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kobe lit even more of a spark underneath the Lakers and give LeBron even more motivation than he already had, which was a ton. But like Jon said, I think they would have been here anyway, although I did predict the Clippers in the preseason and whatever. They would have been in the Western Conference Final Championship anyway. Yeah. But the same thing like Jon said with the Heat. Everyone's a Kobe fan. You can't be a basketball fan and not love Kobe, and not love what he represented for the game, and not love the passion he had for the game. I think everyone's going out there trying to win it, but obviously when you got that purple and gold on, you think 8 and 24, Kobe being Bryant. I think LeBron's going to do this for Kobe. I really think this is going to be dedicated to Kobe. I'm sure that's going to be if they do hoist the championship, that'll definitely be in his post-game speech and all that. But yeah, I mean, definitely a little fire.
Of course. And, you mentioned you had the Clippers in the finals preseason. My finals was Celtics Rockets, which obviously did not happen. But a team that I don't think makes it here would be the Miami Heat if there wasn't an NBA bubble. John, do you agree with me? Because I don't see the Heat winning games in other stadiums, in other courts. With the given circumstances, I think it's a little easier.
Yeah, Jared, this is something that I've gone back and forth with many times. Ultimately, there is an NBA bubble. It's a great achievement. If you're really going to pin me down on and make me choose, do I think they would be here if there was no bubble? I would say no. But I think the way they've handled the bubble is just as much of an achievement because they've been laser focused. I love Jimmy Butler's statement. This isn't about the families. This is a business trip. So I think the way they've handled the bubble has, shown a lot of discipline and professionalism. And I think that in and of itself is a huge achievement. But no, if there was no bubble, I can't say I would see them here.
I mean, you play the cards that you dealt with. Ross, how do you feel?
Objectively speaking, it's hard to. As a Heat fan, obviously, I thought, okay, they're going to make it. But objectively speaking, no, I don't think they would have made it without the bubble. Much like you probably know, Jared, as a Heat fan, Heat fans don't show up to the second half, and we have a half-empty arena. So I think we're used to no fans. That kind of might have helped us out. But it's not an excuse. Everyone was in the bubble. It's at the end of the day, it took away all the factors, right? It took away the fans, the noise, the pressure. It said who balls and who is ready to be the more aggressive team. And obviously, the Miami Heat have shown that they're the best team in the East, and we kind of dominated every team that we've seen. I mean, we went to 6 games against the Celtics, but I'd still say we had that in hand for most of the series, right? I think the bubble was a great help for us. I think it got everyone more focused than they already are, and obviously having Jimmy Butler as our leader, business trip. This is not for fun. I'm glad you guys are having it. I haven't seen anything on Instagram besides Tyler Hero, but he's 20, so what do you expect? He's going to post some stuff he's going to post. But to answer your question, no, I don't think we would have made it to the finals, but I'm glad we did, and there's no excuses for any team. They all have the same opportunities.
Well, something else to mention, we have LeBron making the finals, and I would say, his streak's still alive. He got injured last year, so I don't even count the fact that he hasn't made it. But since 2013 and on, he's been in the finals, and you got Andre Iguodala in his 6th straight NBA finals. I mean, the storylines are insane. But John, I want to ask you, which player are you looking to step up the most to bring their team home a championship from either team?
For me, it's been the guy who's stepped up big for the Lakers this year, and it's Alex Caruso, man. This guy, really good two-way player. He provides a spark. And here's the thing. We know we're going to get great production from LeBron. We know we're going to get great production with AD. It's going to be, can Alex Caruso lock down the Heat's guards offensively, and can he provide that extra spark on offense? So I'm gonna go with Alex Caruso.
Ross, do you have a pick if you could be from the Lakers or the Heat? Who needs to step up to bring home the finals?
Jimmy Butler needs to show he's the best player on the Heat. We're a very by committee team. He would probably argue he's not a superstar and it's all one. We need 20 points a game at least from Jimmy. He needs to take the role offensively. Obviously, defensively, I'm not worried. But at the end of the day, they have the 2 best players on the team, the Lakers, on the court at any point, LeBron and AD. I need Jimmy Butler to step up, and I need him to take control of the team offensively at least. Obviously, she's going to do her thing, or Duncan Robinson, or Tyler Heroes, but I need Jimmy Butler to step it up, show why he's our leader.
So we talked about a bit of the players. I want to focus on the coaching. Ross, who do you think has the edge in coaching in this series? Do you think it's the Heat, or do you think Frank Vogel and the Lakers have the edge?
Well, that's a hard question because who's the coach of the Lakers, right? Is it LeBron James or is it Frank Vogel? But if we go by pure coaching definition, it's Eric Spoelstra. It's not really close because Eric Spoelstra, this is his 5th finals. He's seen this. He's done this. He's probably the best coach in the league, in my opinion. You could argue Greg Popovich. It's pulling hairs at this point, although Greg Popovich is great. But the argument is more, is it LeBron or Eric Spoelstra? Honestly, we can't argue Frank Vogel. He hasn't been here. I mean, when you're on the court, the coach can only do so much. Right? You're on the court. Ball, at the end of the day, it's about getting the buckets. Uncle Drew said it. LeBron James is the coach of that team, right? Obviously, Frank Vogel's going to draw plays. So in a LeBron versus Eric Spoelstra matchup, I'm always going to pick the player. I know that's not really the question. I know I kind of steered it in a way, but I mean, when
Well,
even Ross,
I
yeah,
could pin this on you then. Is this Eric Spoelstra's first finals then, since he doesn't have LeBron?
I could argue it's maybe a second or third. 'Cause I think LeBron's first one, he was still tentative. I think by the last two, it was you knew what was happening. Eric Spoelstra's more of a leader than a coach at that point. He's just there to make sure the egos are intact, make sure no one gets out of hand, and he's the best in the league at that. This is if Eric Spoelstra wins this title, you could put him in the top 5 coaches of all time, just simply because the only argument you could ever have against him was, oh, he had the best player in the world, but now you don't even have a top 10 player, arguably. So if he does this, this is a big accomplishment for Eric Spoelstra if he's able to pull it.
John, what do you think about the coaching here in the finals?
Yeah, the coaching here, obviously, okay, Eric Spoelstra is the greater coach when comparing Eric Spoelstra and Frank Vogel, but I do think let's not shortchange Frank Vogel. I think he's, kind of the perfect Lakers coach to be going in Spoelstra because they're so familiar with each other. Let's remember the Big Three, Miami, had some really tough matchups with Frank Vogel's Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals year after year. So I think that familiarity, and I think, Frank Vogel has a little bit more at his disposal to work with, having LeBron James and Anthony Davis and Kyle Kuzma at his disposal. So, yes, Eric Spoelstra is the greater coach, but let's not shortchange Frank Vogel right here.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. I mean, with the Pacers, he put up some good performances against the Heat before. So, we've kind of touched on coaching players. I need predictions now. Here's your chance to say what you want, not be judged, and to be clipped back 2 weeks from now when your prediction is wrong. I'll start off. Lakers are going to gentleman sweep it 4-1. It's just logical. They'll go up 3-0, lose game 4, win game 5. John, I'll start with you. What do you think? What's your prediction?
So there's a saying in basketball, you live by the 3, you die by the 3. And I think that kind of sums up this Heat team. And I think, there's going to be – I think every game is going to be a very close game. And there's going to be nights where the Heat live by the 3 and they're going to get the wins. And then there's going to be nights where they lose by the 3. So I think this is going to be a really competitive series. I think every game is going to come down to the wire. But I think ultimately LeBron James and Anthony Davis are going to win this series in 7 games.
7 games.
Yeah, because the Heat are going to have nights where they come out and they're red hot shooting, and that's just going to be that's going to make up for, the scoring output of Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
Who's your MVP?
My MVP, Anthony Davis.
Okay.
I think he's been really their go-to guy throughout these playoffs.
That's fair. Ross, what do you got?
I'm going to do the Paul Pierce and Celtics approach where I'm just going to go with the fandom. I'm going Heat in 7 for obvious reasons. Listen, like John said, if we're knocking down shots, I think it's going to be very hard to guard. I don't know if we're going to run that zone defense against them. I don't think it'd work. Listen, man, you got to have faith. You got to believe. I think we have the more complete team. That is an argument. We have the deeper team. We have the better coach. And I think we have the grit. We don't have LeBron James. That's an issue. But besides that, I mean, we have the better shooters. I think we have the more cohesive team. I think we have great defense. I think Bam is going to give Anthony Davis more trouble than people are predicting. I think Bam's going to show why he's already a top 5 center in this league. Listen, man, I'm going Heat in 7. I could argue all day for it. It's easy to argue LeBron and AD, but Heat in 7, locking it in. I won't be wrong where I was about the
Who's your MVP?
MVP from the Heat. I think they're going to give it to me regardless of stats because he's our leader. I just feel like that's going to happen.
That's fair. Closing thoughts. My final question for you guys. If the Lakers do not win this, is the season a failure?
Yes. 100%. Not even close. LeBron doesn't play for second place. He didn't even celebrate in the Western Conference Finals. Championship or bust. They're not the Clippers who complained. This is LeBron James we're talking
Because
about.
if you look at it from the Heat perspective, I think getting here is an accomplishment in itself with how young the team is. But, John, do you feel if the Lakers don't win that this is just a complete failure?
Yeah, listen, the Lakers coming into this season had expectations of a championship. If you don't meet those expectations, you failed. So, yes, if they lose this series to the young Miami Heat, this season is a failure.
Fair enough. All right, boys. I appreciate your insight here on the NBA Finals. It kicks off Wednesday. It's going to be a great series. So much storylines. You can go on all day. We can do an hour-long segment on the storylines. But I know every single show this week on Hitting the Field Network is going to be talking about all the storylines in the NBA Finals. So don't forget to miss those shows. Ross, thank you so much for joining me. John, I appreciate you stopping by. And everyone, make sure to check out his show on Tuesdays. Anything else you guys want to throw out there?
Always a pleasure. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for Just Winning with me, Jon Whitley.
Ross, any closing thoughts?
I'll be on Girls on Deck this week, also talking about some NBA, also talking about some Miami Heat. If you want to hear me talk more about how the Miami Heat will somehow win this series, go check that out. Great to see you guys. Hope everything's well, and yeah, go Heat.
All right, when we come back, I'm going to be talking some NFL. Stay with us.
I'm in charge of the meeting this week. So you know what we're going to talk about? Basketball. The second thing we're going to talk about this week is basketball. Okay? And the third and last thing we're going to talk about is basketball.
Yeah. God, yeah. It's ridiculous. I want to quit. Can I quit? Take that.
Look at the screen. What are we talking about this week?
Basketball.
And welcome back to Hitting the Field. I am now joined by Kyle Dewitt and Alex Funderburke to talk about Week 3 of the NFL. But first off, Kyle, how are you doing today?
Man, the NFL season has been going great so far. I think that after 3 weeks, I think we're starting to see like which teams are dominant and which teams are subpar. So we're going to be glad to talk about it today.
And making his debut on Hitting the Field, we got Alex Funderburke. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right, no problem. First thing I want to jump into right away is the Bills and Rams game yesterday. The Bills went up big time, and next thing you know, the Rams are knocking on the door with the lead before Josh Allen led his team down the field to a game-winning drive. Alex, I want to start with you. What have you thought of Josh Allen so far this season?
I think he's the front runner for the MVP right now. I think it's him or Russell Wilson, but Josh Allen so far, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception, and already over 1,000 yards. I mean, that's really impressive. I think he's finally coming into his own. You know, accuracy is still a little shaky sometimes, but I think he's getting there, and we're finally seeing what he can be.
Kyle?
I mean, I feel like the same thing. We've been seeing a trend over the past couple of years of first-year quarterbacks making that jump in the second year to become elite. We've seen it with Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes. We've seen it with everybody. And it just seems like Josh Allen's just now falling into that category. He also has a lot more weapons this season than last season, and it's really showing what his true arm talent can be and how much of a leader he can be.
Something I want to point out in that game, though, the Bills were up 28-3 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter, and it did look like the Rams were going to come back into that game. Alex, what is the issue with teams in closing out football games? Because it seems to be a common issue this year.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, the Bills kind of got bailed out with a controversial pass interference call, but I don't know. We've seen it with the Falcons 2 weeks in a row now, the Bills yesterday, and I don't know why teams aren't holding on to the lead. I think maybe they're getting too complacent and they're playing not to lose instead of playing to win and keeping the foot on the pedal. But it is interesting to see how many teams are just blowing leads late.
Kyle?
It just seems like some of these teams are going away from their identity after they get up 15, 20 points. Falcons, they try and go run the ball with Todd Gurley when they should just keep on throwing the ball to Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones. That's their offense, and they're just getting away from their identity. Same thing with the Bills. Their offense is play through Josh Allen. Let Josh Allen run the ball, and then let Josh Allen pass the ball to Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, John Brown. And then it just seems like later on in games when they're up by 20 points, it just seems like they're trying to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands so he doesn't get hurt. Because he's their whole offense.
Yeah.
If they don't have Josh Allen, they're not 3-0.
That's a fair point. Now, something the Bills did in the offseason, they kind of stole Stephon Diggs from the Vikings. And not only that, Gabe Davis has looked really well with the team. I mean, they have a great wide receiving core this year, and I think that's helped Josh Allen out a lot. Alex, I mean, do you think the Diggs deal is paying off?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like you said, they kind of robbed Minnesota for him. And you're seeing it now. I mean, that's Josh Allen's go-to guy now. So, but what I also think is impressive with Allen is he's hit a lot of different receivers for touchdowns so far this year. I think I saw a stat yesterday. I think it said 7 of his 10 touchdowns are to different people. So that's insane, and that goes to show you how deep their receiving core is. And I think the Bills are going to be a player come playoff time.
Kyle, would you agree with that?
I do completely agree with that. He has 7 to 8 targets that he can reliably throw the ball to. He's got 3. I wouldn't say elite wide receivers, definitely elite with Stephon Diggs, but definitely 3 above average wide receivers that he can reliably throw the ball to. And great running backs coming out of the backfield as well as Singletary.
That's a good point. The Bills are looking good, and it's between them and the Patriots. I think we kind of knew that going into the season, but come down the stretch, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now, I do want to jump over to the Falcons, who Alex did mention for back-to-back weeks have blown another game. The Falcons led 26-10 with 9:06 left in the third quarter when Nick Foles, that is correct, Nick Foles came into the game for Mitchell Trubisky and scored 3 touchdowns in under 5 minutes to lead the Bears to a comeback victory. Kyle, Nick Foles is just clutch, right? Like, come on.
Nick Foles is I wouldn't say one of the best clutch quarterbacks of all time, but that it's just like a broken record at this point. It's with 3 different teams that Nick Foles has done this. It's insane how Nick Foles can jump into almost any scenario and lead a team to victory. But the one thing I will say is, though, the Falcons did not prepare for Nick Foles. They prepared for Mitchell Trubisky. So we'll see how Nick Foles plays next week, since he will most likely be the starter. But Nick Foles played great, and he led him to a victory, and we'll see what he can do next week.
Alex, what did you think about the decision to pull Mitch and bring in Nick Foles?
I think they needed something to spark them, and I think Nick Foles was that spark. 188 yards in the fourth quarter and 3 touchdowns is really impressive. And I mean, it just the Falcons. I mean, it's a broken record, like Kyle was saying with Nick Foles. It's a broken record with the Falcons. They just keep blowing leads. I mean, 99.3% chance to win with 6:24 to go, and then you don't win that game. That's really bad.
Now, if you're the Bears, Alex, and you're any other quarterback, the Bears are 3-0. At what time do we see a quarterback pull from a game from a team that has been off to a good start? Is it just because it's Mitch and he had a short leash coming into the season, you think?
I think it is a little bit of Mitch having a short leash, and then, like I said, I think they just needed a spark. And yes, they're 3-0, but they're kind of an unimpressive 3-0, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
They haven't shown me anything that's like, yep, this is a good team. I think they've benefited off of their schedule so far, but I think Nick Foles coming in, getting a win, they're on the rise. I don't know if they're a player for the playoffs come yet, but they're definitely on the rise.
Kyle, is Nick Foles the future now in Chicago?
Man, he's starting to get up there in age. I know quarterbacks live to be a million years old before they retire nowadays, but just Nick Foles' injury issues, his consistency issues, that's my issue with Nick Foles as of right now.
That's a good point. I mean, we haven't seen him really play a full season. He's come in for Carson Wentz come week 13. He's come in week 12, and he's kind of led the back half of the season. Alex, can Nick Foles get it done for a full season?
See, I don't think he can get it done for a full season, but if I'm the Bears, I'm starting Mitch, and then come week 12, week 13, if it's not looking like Mitch is for sure the guy, put Foles in there and see what he can do.
All right. Now, real quick, I want to ask both of you. We'll start with you, Kyle. By the time I wake up tomorrow, is Dan Quinn still going to be coaching the Falcons?
He shouldn't be, but he will be.
Okay. Alex?
I agree. He shouldn't be, but he will be. For some reason, that ownership loves him, and I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
That's a good point, because I thought he was going to get fired a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to transition from one NFC South team over to another. We're going to talk about the New Orleans Saints, who took on the Green Bay Packers last night. And the Saints, I don't know what they're doing, but they somehow lose to the Green Bay Packers without Devontae Adams. And Aaron Rodgers looks like the GOAT once again. Kyle, what was your biggest takeaway from last night's game?
My biggest takeaway from the game is that I think that Drew Brees is finally starting to decline. But it's also because he doesn't have Michael Thomas. I mean, his best receiver is Emmanuel Sanders. He doesn't really have a lot of weapons at the wide receiver core to help him out. I mean, Traquan Smith. But none of those receivers can get any separation. So Drew Brees is having to check down the ball every single play to one of his running backs. none of those receivers can get any separation, get open. So Drew Brees can't even show that he can throw the ball a maximum of 30 yards downfield.
Well, you mentioned that. I mean, that Emmanuel Sanders is his best wide receiver. He only had 5 targets, and Kamara had 14.
Yep.
Alex, you want to touch on their receiving core right now?
Yeah, I think the receiving core is depleted, but I think not targeting Emmanuel Sanders more is kind of questionable. And with Breeze, his average depth of target was around 5 yards. It was only 4.7 in the first half. So he's not throwing the ball downfield. And I think that is why he's not targeting Emmanuel Sanders, because I don't think Breeze can't go long to him anymore. But getting Michael Thomas back would be huge. But will Breeze be able to make the deep throws? I think that's the biggest question for the Saints right now.
I mean, I would say the MVP of this team so far has been Alvin Kamara. I mean, they
sure.
finally gave him the money. He had a huge game last night, especially for me in fantasy. But Kyle, why is Drew Brees? Is it age or is it because it's just 1 year? It's not even like it's been 5 years. Like he was really good last year, and now it's really bad this year.
It's just a mixture of everything. He's lost a lot of his targets that he's had in the past. So he doesn't have Michael Thomas. He might play next week. You don't know. But when your best target on the field is your running back, of course, you're going to have to give him the ball most of the time. And I think it's also age, too. I just think that he just doesn't have that pep in his throwing arm anymore. I really don't think he does.
Alex, do you think this is Breeze's last season?
Yeah, I do. And it's going to be weird to see the Saints not have Drew Brees at quarterback anymore, but I do think this is his last year. The arm's not there anymore.
That would be a huge blow. I mean, Kyle, I know you're excited the Bucs have Tom Brady, but the Saints could have had him. So it's kind of like it's an interesting point to bring up. But on the flip side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers looks great, and he was amazing without his number one target, Devontae Adams. Kyle, what did you think about the Packers as a whole last night?
I think that the supporting cast has really stepped up. Aaron Jones has really stepped up. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has stepped up. I'm brain farting. I don't know the other wide receiver's name. He made Lazard. Yes, he made amazing plays last night. It goes to show that they don't only need Devontae Adams, and maybe the front office wasn't so stupid for not picking a wide receiver in the first round of the draft.
That's fair. Alex, what do you think? I mean, Kyle's pointing out the supporting cast. What do you think of the Packers?
I think the Packers are a legit Super Bowl contender. Last year, they went 13-3, and Rodgers and LaFleur didn't seem to get along. Now they look like they're getting along, and they're just wrecking teams. That game was a lot closer than it kind of felt watching it, but the Packers look legit. Aaron Rodgers still has it. Aaron Jones is a stud. And like Kyle was saying, their role guys are really stepping up big without Devontae Adams there.
Yeah, you mentioned the game was a lot closer on paper. I mean, I feel like the Packers were in control the whole game. I don't know if there was ever a moment where I'm like, oh, the Packers are going to lose this game. I mean, it always comes down to coaching. And as you mentioned, Matt LaFleur, we were talking last year, you know what, Aaron Rodgers might be done because of Matt LaFleur and him just don't seem to be getting along. But it's interesting how an offseason can change all of that. So, I mean, we've been asking this. I know it's only 3 weeks in. Alex, are the Packers a playoff team so far?
Oh, for sure, without a doubt. And I think right now them or the Seahawks are the favorites in the NFC.
I was going to say the same thing. Packers are a legit Super Bowl contender. They're probably first or second seed in the NFC as of right now. And it looks like Aaron Rodgers is not really saying turning back time, but it looks like he's playing like he's 28 years old. Aaron Rodgers doesn't look like he's lost one step. And he had a very underrated season last year. Everybody was talking about the controversies with LaFleur, but he still had a great statistical season, and he still put up numbers. And now he's just going to put up better numbers.
Yeah, that was my best 11th round fantasy pick in history of 11th round fantasy picks for me. But, moving on from the fantasy side over to the reality side for the Tennessee Titans, who are 3-0. Derrick Henry had a monster game yesterday, rushing for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alex, are the Titans a favorite in the AFC this season?
See, I don't know. I think they're 3-0, but their opponents have a combined record of 1-8, and Derrick Henry is only averaging 3.9 yards a carry so far. And last week those were his first 2 touchdowns on the season. I think him averaging only 3.9 yards a carry and them being 3-0 is impressive. I'll give them that. And Tannehill has looked good. I don't know if I'm ready to say they're a contender in the AFC yet, but I think they will get into the playoffs.
Kyle?
They will most likely win the AFC South. I mean, Indianapolis is their only competitor. You got to think of how close those games were in those 3-0 games and their opponents. They won by 1 point to the Jaguars, won by a field goal to the Broncos, who are 0-3, and then yesterday they only won by a point as well. I mean, it's just they're like the Bears. They're not an impressive 3-0. I haven't seen anything that shows me that the Titans are still a true competitor. I still see the only 3 teams in the AFC that could possibly make the Super Bowl are the Chiefs, Ravens, or Bills. Those are the only 3 teams that I see that could make that. Those are the only 3 teams I see that can make the Super Bowl as of right now.
Chiefs, Ravens, or Bills. So you're gonna count out the Patriots completely?
Yes.
Because they competed with the Seahawks, who we had mentioned earlier were one of the NFC favorites.
Who then also struggled against the Raiders yesterday, but the Raiders are also a really sneaky good team.
That's fair.
I'm not picking the Patriots to go to the Super Bowl this season. I still think they're going to need this season. They're going to be good. They'll make the playoffs, but not a Super Bowl team.
Alex, do you agree with those Super Bowl contenders for the AFC, or do you have different teams in mind?
So I agree with his 3, and then I think the Patriots have to be in there. Cam Newton's looked like old Cam Newton, and that defense is still really good. So I think you got to throw the Patriots in there, but other than that, I agree completely.
I know I didn't throw this question in there earlier, but I just want to take it. Who's been the MVP 3 weeks into the season?
Russell Wilson.
Yep, I agree. Russell or Josh Allen. I think they're either way. You can't go wrong with either of them. One or two.
Russell Wilson's completing 70% of his passes and has 15 total touchdowns in 3 games and over 1,000 yards. That's insane. That's like better than Pat Mahomes 2 seasons ago stats. And I never thought I'd see better stats than that.
That is a good point.
But it's only 3 weeks into the season, so.
That's true. Anything can happen,
Yep.
A couple seasons ago, Carson Wentz was MVP, and look at him now. He can't even throw a football without me losing my mind. We tied to the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah.
Hey, I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm okay with it.
The Cowboys should be 0-3, and they should be the best 0-3 team in the NFL because they should.
100%.
Right now, it is the Atlanta Falcons that are the best 0-3 team.
Yeah,
I don't even know if you could say they're good. That Falcons team.
The Texans are a good football team too.
Exactly. I would go with the Texans as the best 0-3 team.
All right, wait. So you know what? Since you mentioned the Texans, they fell to the Pittsburgh Steelers yesterday. What is wrong with the Texans? Why is Bill O'Brien still coaching?
I think Bill O'Brien is the big problem, but I also think they got killed with their first 3 games. I mean, Chiefs, Ravens, Steelers. That's not an easy first 3 games, especially when you trade your best wide receiver and one of the best wide receivers in the league. But Bill O'Brien's got to go, or at least relieve him from his GM job. Just let him coach, because don't let him make trades anymore.
Kyle, closing thoughts on the Texans?
Definitely the same exact thing. I mean, I don't know why Bill O'Brien is allowing to make trades. I would have never traded an injury-riddled I would never trade it for an injury-riddled David Johnson, let alone give up a top 3 wide receiver in the league.
For a second-round pick. All right, boys. I appreciate you guys coming by the show. Alex, Kyle, any closing thoughts before we throw this to commercial?
Closing thoughts. Tampa, they're 2-1. Yeah, they had a rough week 1 against the Saints, but I think that Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, they're finally starting to get that rhythm going.
Alex?
My closing thoughts are I'm not impressed with the Buccaneers, and they won't make the playoffs.
Okay.
Fair enough. We'd like to hear the little friendly banter on the show. That's all the time we have for NFL today. When we come back, I'm going to deliver a little rant, and we'll see you then. Stay with us.
What it's like to be a Saints fan right now.
Dude, I'd be so guys.
Mad. I can't believe that ridiculous no call.
Bro, I'm puzzled. If they would have made that call, who do you think would have been in the Super Bowl? The Saints would have been the Super Bowl. Come on now.
The refs, they need to be punished.
Oh, hey guys. Did you see my missed call last week? Could have sent that team to the championship. I guess not.
I can't take this anymore.
What's up with this guy?
Welcome back to Hitting the Field. I'm so glad you've made it all the way to the end. Special shout out to Ross, John, Alex, and Kyle for coming on the show today and giving some awesome answers and giving their insight. But now it's time to rant, and where else to start than what I'm wearing on my head. The Miami Marlins are in the playoffs for the first time since 2003. That is right, and how poetic. They clinch against the New York Yankees, who they beat in 2003, on the anniversary of Jose Fernandez's death. Absolutely, you could not have asked for a better storyline. And they match up against the Cubs in the first round. Think about it. They shouldn't have even been to the World Series that year, arguably. But, hey, stuff happens. Thanks, Cubs. Shout out to your fans. Steve Bartman, great guy. But moving on, you know, the Marlins, it's been a great season. Winning season. And regardless of what you guys do in the postseason, proud to be a Marlins fan. Always have been, always will be. Go Fish. And last but not least, got to give a special shout out to my mom. Yeah, she texted me. She's like, how come I don't get a shout out? So I'm going to give her a little shout out. Wearing her shirt today, you know. She bought me for my birthday, my 21st birthday, the one I spent quarantine 2020. So, you know, special shout out to you, Mom. Appreciate all you do. Hope everything's going well back home. And hope you're enjoying online learning because you're a teacher. And, yeah, everyone else, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Hitting the Field. And we're going to see you next week on Hitting the Field.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the